Welcome to True Crime Village, where ordinary neighborhoods hide extraordinary horrors. In a sun-drenched coastal town in Florida, where tourists flocked for beach vacations and residents lived in apparent tranquility, no one suspected the bloodbath that would forever alter their community's identity. Behind the pristine facade of one family home, a massacre so brutal occurred that it left even seasoned detectives speechless. 200 stab wounds. Let that sink in. Not 2, not 20. 200 separate strikes of a kitchen knife, each one delivered by a daughter to her own mother. The sheer violence suggested not just murder but obliteration, an attempt to erase another human being from existence. How does a parent-child relationship deteriorate to such catastrophic depths? What invisible wounds fester beneath seemingly normal family dynamics? Have you ever wondered what truly happens behind closed doors in your own neighborhood, or perhaps even in your own family? The smiles we see in public often mask private battles that no one witnesses. But what makes this case particularly chilling isn't just the savagery of the attack. It's what happened afterward. Elena, covered in her mother's blood, embarked on a performance worthy of an award, a calculated charade of insanity designed to escape justice. The question remains: can someone truly fake mental illness after committing such an unthinkable act? Or does the very nature of the crime indicate a mind already broken beyond repair? Today, we'll decode this harrowing case, exposing the warning signs that went unnoticed and the crucial moments where intervention might have prevented tragedy. Before we continue this journey, take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Each week, we bring you stories that not just shock, but teach valuable lessons about human psychology and societal blind spots. Your subscription helps us shed light on these dark corners of humanity. Now, let's return to the Florida coast, where Elena's descent into violence began long before she ever picked up that knife. To understand this tragedy, we must first meet its central figures. Two women locked in a toxic dance of control and rebellion that would ultimately end in bloodshed. Margot Reynolds, 53, commanded attention whenever she entered a room. Standing at 5 feet 8 inches with immaculately styled silver-streaked hair and designer clothes, she projected an image of flawless composure. As the head administrator at a prestigious local hospital, she demanded perfection, both professionally and personally. Colleagues described her as formidable and exacting, traits that followed her home each evening. Behind her polished exterior, Margot ruled her household through psychological warfare. She weaponized silence, withholding affection as punishment. She scrutinized every decision, from Elena's clothing choices to her friendships. Former neighbors recall overhearing Margot's cutting remarks: "You'll never amount to anything without my guidance, and no one will love you like I do. They'll see right through you." Her control extended beyond emotional manipulation. Margot monitored Elena's phone, tracked her whereabouts through apps, and installed cameras throughout their home, all under the guise of protection. This surveillance created an inescapable prison of constant evaluation. Elena, 24, once possessed a vibrant spirit that gradually dimmed under her mother's shadow. Former classmates remember a bright, artistic girl who excelled in creative writing and painting, talents Margot dismissed as impractical hobbies. Photos from Elena's early teens show a smiling, confident young woman. By 20, her social media posts revealed hollow eyes and forced smiles. After dropping out of college, a decision that triggered one of Margot's most severe emotional onslaughts, Elena retreated further inward. She developed coping mechanisms: prescription anxiety medications, occasional drinking, and meticulous journals where she documented her mother's psychological assaults. These journals would later become crucial evidence, revealing a mind methodically cataloging years of abuse. The mother-daughter dynamic functioned like a pressure cooker with no release valve. In public, they maintained a facade of normalcy, even closeness. Margot would proudly introduce Elena at community functions, one arm draped possessively around her shoulders. Elena would smile on cue, performing the role of devoted daughter while internally cataloging each slight, each humiliation. What makes this case particularly tragic were the warning signs visible to the community yet never addressed. Elena's art teacher noticed disturbing themes emerging in her work: fragmented female figures, cages, and sharp objects. A pharmacy technician observed Elena's increasing reliance on anti-anxiety medications. A neighbor once witnessed Margot berating Elena in their driveway, reducing the young woman to tears before noticing they were being watched, instantly transforming into a concerned mother comforting her overly sensitive daughter. These fragments, when assembled after the murder, created a clear picture of impending disaster. But in isolation, each observer dismissed their concerns, unwilling to intrude on what society still considers private family matters. The stage was set for catastrophe. A controlling mother, a daughter silently plotting her escape, and a community that looked away at crucial moments when intervention might have changed everything. The 3 years preceding the murder marked Elena's accelerating descent into psychological distress. What began as occasional anxiety attacks evolved into debilitating episodes that left her bedridden for days. Medical records obtained during the investigation revealed prescriptions for Xanax, Valium, and eventually Seroquel, medications that, when combined with alcohol, created a dangerous cocktail affecting judgment and emotional regulation. Elena's journal entries from this period expose her fragmenting mental state. "Sometimes I feel like I'm watching myself from outside my body. I see myself nodding when she criticizes me, but inside I'm screaming. The pills make the screaming quieter, but they never silence it completely." Her dependency on substances wasn't merely self-medication, it became a form of rebellion. Each pill swallowed represented a small act of defiance against Margot's demand for perfection. Elena later confessed to investigators that she would sometimes take medication in front of her mother, maintaining eye contact as she swallowed, savoring the flash of disapproval that crossed Margot's face. Margot's psychological warfare operated with surgical precision. She employed techniques that mental health professionals later identified as classic emotional abuse: gaslighting, isolation, and intermittent reinforcement. When Elena misplaced items, Margot would secretly move them, then question her daughter's sanity. "You're becoming so forgetful. Perhaps we should have you evaluated for early-onset dementia," she once remarked to her then 23-year-old daughter. Isolation became another powerful weapon. When Elena formed a close friendship with a coworker at the local bookstore, Margot contacted the manager with fabricated concerns about the coworker's negative influence, resulting in schedule changes that prevented their shifts from overlapping. One by one, Elena's support systems were systematically dismantled. Perhaps most damaging was Margot's pattern of unpredictable praise and criticism. Elena never knew which version of her mother she would encounter: the occasionally supportive parent who funded her art supplies, or the cruel critic who would later destroy her paintings as cluttering the house with mediocrity. Household tensions reached critical levels in the final months. Neighbors reported hearing more frequent arguments. The property's landscaper recalled finding shattered glass in the garden beds multiple times. Elena's therapist, whom she saw secretly, paying cash to avoid her mother's insurance surveillance, noted increasing references to escape and freedom in their sessions. The breaking point arrived on a sweltering July evening. Elena had applied to an art program in California without her mother's knowledge. The acceptance letter arrived while Margot was at work, but she returned home unexpectedly early, intercepting the mail. What followed was described in Elena's final journal entry, discovered under her mattress. "She tore it to pieces in front of me. Not just the letter. My future, my one chance. She laughed while doing it, said I'd never survive without her. Then she said the words that keep echoing: 'You're mine until one of us dies.' She doesn't know how prophetic those words are." That night, Margot continued her psychological assault over dinner, outlining all the ways Elena would fail if she left. She methodically dissected every dream her daughter had ever shared, explaining why each was unattainable due to Elena's inherent inadequacies. As Margot spoke, something within Elena, something that had been bending for years, finally snapped. The psychological restraints that had contained her rage disintegrated. In that moment, as her mother continued talking, Elena made her decision. The California program wouldn't be her escape route after all. She had found another way out. July 17th, 8:42 p.m. The Reynolds house stood quiet as Margot cleared dinner plates from the table. Elena remained seated, her expression blank, her decision already made. The kitchen clock ticked methodically as mother and daughter existed in momentary silence, the calm preceding an unimaginable storm. At 8:47 p.m., according to Elena's later confession, Margot resumed her critique of the California art program. "You'd come crawling back within a month. Your mediocre talents wouldn't sustain you." Elena's phone recorded fragments of what followed. A partial audio file, accidentally activated in her pocket, captured Margot's voice. "You're nothing without me. I've sacrificed everything for you, and this is how you repay me? With delusions of independence." 8:53 p.m. Elena stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the tile floor. Witnesses in neighboring homes reported hearing raised voices, but nothing unusual enough to warrant concern. The Reynolds women were known for their heated exchanges. 8:55 p.m. Elena walked to the kitchen. The knife blocks sat on the granite countertop, each handle extending outward like beckoning fingers. She selected the chef's knife, 8 inches of German steel, recently sharpened. Court records indicate she stood motionless for nearly 30 seconds, knife in hand, contemplating. 9:01 p.m. The confrontation escalated. Margot, following Elena into the kitchen, noticed the knife and laughed. "What exactly do you plan to do with that?" she asked, her voice dripping with dismissal. "Add dramatic flair to your little tantrum?" What happened next transformed their home into a slaughterhouse. Elena's first strike caught Margot in the abdomen. The second pierced her chest. Margot's expression, as described by Elena, shifted from mockery to disbelief to terror. Forensic analysis revealed the attack continued long after Margot collapsed. Blood spatter patterns indicated Elena pursued her mother from the kitchen into the living room, continuing to stab her as she fell. The medical examiner documented wounds to Margot's torso, neck, face, arms, and hands, the latter confirming desperate attempts at self-defense. The question that haunted investigators: why 200 stab wounds? Forensic psychologists explain this level of overkill represents more than murder. It signifies annihilation, an attempt to physically destroy the person who caused such profound psychological damage. Each wound after the fatal ones represented years of suppressed rage finally finding expression. The attack lasted approximately 12 minutes. At 9:17 p.m., exhausted and drenched in blood, Elena dropped the knife. Neighbors reported an unsettling silence falling over the property. What occurred next revealed the calculated aspect of Elena's psyche. Rather than fleeing or calling emergency services, she underwent a startling transformation. Security footage from the home's entrance captured Elena at 9:32 p.m., stepping outside briefly, her expression eerily composed despite blood-soaked clothing. When police arrived, responding to a concerned neighbor's call about unusual noises, they discovered Elena rocking back and forth in the corner of the living room, singing childhood lullabies. She looked up at the officers and asked, "Is Mother sleeping now?" The voices said she needed to rest forever. This performance, and evidence suggests it was exactly that, continued through her arrest. Officers' body cameras recorded Elena speaking in disjointed sentences, claiming shadow people had commanded the killing. Yet her eyes remained alert, constantly assessing the reactions her behavior elicited. Before we continue with the aftermath, I want to ask you, have you noticed similar warning signs in relationships around you? The isolation, the control, the psychological manipulation. Share your observations in the comments. Your insight might help someone recognize dangerous patterns before they escalate to violence. Remember, intervention begins with awareness. Now, let's examine how Elena's performance evolved as investigators began assembling the truth behind her calculated display of madness. The scene greeting first responders at 10:03 p.m. defied comprehension. Officer James Martinez, first to enter the Reynolds home, described it as a vision from hell itself. Blood covered nearly every surface of the living room, walls, furniture, and carpet saturated beyond recognition. The metallic scent permeated the air so strongly that several officers required breaks while processing the scene. Crime scene technicians worked through the night, meticulously documenting each wound, blood spatter pattern, and piece of evidence. The knife, bent from the force of repeated impacts, sat in a congealing pool of crimson. Margot's body, almost unrecognizable, required special transportation procedures due to the extensive damage. As dawn broke, news traveled through the neighborhood. Yellow police tape transformed the quiet street into an impromptu gathering place for shell-shocked residents. Candace Winters, who lived 3 doors down, collapsed when informed of the details. "They seemed so normal," she repeated, a phrase echoed by dozens of neighbors throughout the day. Local schools brought in counselors as children asked questions about the police presence. Community forums hastily organized discussions about domestic violence and mental health resources. A collective guilt descended as residents questioned what they might have missed or ignored. Meanwhile, at the police station, Elena's performance evolved with calculated precision. Detective Lisa Harding noted how Elena's behavior shifted depending on who entered the interrogation room. With younger officers, she appeared childlike and confused. With veteran detectives, her symptoms intensified, claiming hallucinations and describing invisible entities who had guided her hand. Yet surveillance footage from holding cells revealed discrepancies. When Elena believed herself unobserved, the vacant stare vanished. She examined her surroundings methodically, tested restraints, and practiced facial expressions in the reflection of the two-way mirror, rehearsing for her next audience. Within 48 hours, national media descended on the town. Cable news networks established makeshift studios on the courthouse lawn. Headlines proclaimed shocking angles, 200 stab wounds, daughter's deadly rage, and madness or murder, the Elena Reynolds case. The public's fascination intensified as details emerged. Online forums debated Elena's mental state, with amateur psychologists offering armchair diagnoses. True crime podcasts rushed special episodes analyzing the case. The murder became a macabre spectacle, with Elena as its central performer. Most disturbing was the discovery made when authorities searched Elena's laptop. Browser history revealed extensive research on famous insanity defenses, symptoms of schizophrenia, and how to appear mentally unstable to observers. One bookmarked article specifically outlined behaviors that historically convinced courts of diminished capacity. Behaviors Elena had meticulously replicated since her arrest. The stage was set for a legal battle that would center on a critical question. Could someone mentally stable enough to research and mimic insanity truly be declared insane? As the initial shock subsided, forensic specialists delved deeper into the physical evidence. Blood spatter analysis revealed crucial details about the attack's progression. Margot's defensive wounds indicated she remained conscious and fighting through approximately 70 stab wounds, a testament to human survival instinct in the face of overwhelming violence. The murder weapon yielded unexpected insights. Microscopic examination showed the knife had been cleaned and replaced in the block multiple times before the final attack. This suggested previous contemplation of violence, contradicting Elena's claims of a sudden psychotic break. Digital forensics uncovered the most damning evidence. Elena's search history included queries like, "How to convince doctors you're hearing voices?" and "Famous cases where insanity defense worked." Most telling was a document titled Plan B, created 3 weeks before the murder, outlining steps for appearing mentally unstable if other options fail. The investigation into Elena's mental health history revealed a complex picture. Medical records confirmed diagnoses of anxiety and depression dating back to her late teens. 5 therapists had treated her over 7 years, though none had documented psychotic symptoms or violent tendencies. Her prescription history showed increasing dosages of anti-anxiety medications, often obtained from different doctors, a practice known as doctor shopping. In Elena's bedroom, investigators discovered 13 journals spanning a decade. Early entries described Margot's controlling behavior in heartbreaking detail, Mom threw away my art project today because I got a B+ in calculus. She said beauty is a reward for excellence, not a consolation for mediocrity. Later writings became increasingly focused on freedom through escape, then freedom through elimination. The final entry, dated one day before the murder, contained a single sentence: "Tomorrow I choose my path." The medication inventory from Elena's bathroom cabinet told another story. Prescription bottles for Xanax, Ativan, and Valium, some prescribed, others apparently obtained illegally, suggested significant substance dependence. Toxicology reports confirmed Elena had multiple sedatives in her system the night of the murder, though at levels indicating long-term tolerance rather than acute impairment. As the case progressed, mental health experts clashed over Elena's psychological state. Dr. Marcus Chen, forensic psychiatrist for the prosecution, emphasized the calculation evident in her actions. Someone experiencing a genuine psychotic break doesn't research symptoms beforehand. The methodical nature of both the crime and the subsequent behavior pattern indicates awareness of consequences. Defense expert Dr. Amelia Watkins countered, "Long-term psychological abuse creates fragmented personalities." Elena's research could represent a desperate attempt to understand her own deteriorating mental condition. The prosecution's case strengthened when surveillance footage from a coffee shop emerged, showing Elena calmly researching legal definitions of insanity just hours before returning home to commit murder. Behavior incompatible with someone losing touch with reality. The Florida versus Reynolds trial began 9 months after the murder, transforming the county courthouse into a battlefield of competing narratives. National media broadcast daily updates as Elena entered each session in muted clothing, her previously vibrant hair now limp and dull, a calculated visual reinforcement of her mental fragility. Defense attorney Victoria Hammond launched her strategy with an opening statement that sent murmurs through the gallery. "The woman before you today is not the same person who committed these acts. That person was created through years of psychological torture and chemical dependency, a fractured mind that finally shattered completely." The insanity defense hinged on proving Elena couldn't distinguish right from wrong during the attack. Hammond assembled a team of psychiatric experts who testified about the effects of prolonged emotional abuse on brain development. The defense presented brain scans showing abnormalities in Elena's prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for impulse control and decision-making. Dr. Rebecca Fontaine, the defense's star witness, explained, "What we see here is consistent with trauma-induced dissociation. Elena experienced a psychological break from reality triggered by years of abuse and exacerbated by prescription medication interactions." Prosecutor Anthony Morales countered with methodical precision. "Premeditation doesn't require months of planning," he told jurors. "It only demands enough time to form intent." He displayed Elena's internet searches, the Plan B document, and surveillance footage showing her purchasing trash bags and cleaning supplies 3 days before the murder, items never used but suggesting preparation for aftermath management. The prosecution's forensic psychiatrist testified that Elena's post-murder behavior revealed awareness of consequences. Her symptoms appeared selectively and escalated when beneficial. During private jail cell observations, these symptoms disappeared entirely, a pattern inconsistent with genuine psychosis. Most damaging was the prosecution's timeline reconstruction. Text messages revealed Elena had canceled a shift at work for the murder date 3 days in advance. Her final journal entry indicated decision-making rather than confusion. The prosecution argued these weren't the actions of someone who had lost touch with reality, but rather someone executing a predetermined plan. Public opinion fractured along ideological lines. Domestic violence advocates rallied outside the courthouse with signs reading, "Abuse victims deserve justice too." Mental health organizations cautioned against stigmatizing psychiatric conditions. Online communities debated whether Elena was a calculating killer or herself a victim pushed beyond human endurance. Courtroom observers noted Elena's subtle reactions during testimony. When evidence of premeditation appeared, her eyes would drift downward. During descriptions of her mother's controlling behavior, she would visibly tremble. Was this authentic emotion or performance? The jury watched intently, trying to decode her every movement. If you were sitting on this jury right now, what would you decide? The evidence points in multiple directions, calculation and planning on one side, psychological deterioration on the other. Would you see Elena as a victim whose mind finally broke, or as someone who used violence as a calculated escape? Share your verdict in the comments below. Your perspective might highlight aspects of this case others haven't considered. Now, let's examine how the actual jury reached their momentous decision. After 6 days of deliberation, the jury returned with their decision. The courtroom fell silent as the foreman stood. On the charge of first-degree murder, we find the defendant, Elena Reynolds, guilty. Elena remained motionless as the verdict echoed through the room. Her performance of fragility vanished momentarily, a flash of cold recognition crossing her face before the vacant stare returned. Judge Harriet Coleman delivered a sentence that acknowledged the case's complexity. 25 years to life with mandatory psychiatric treatment. In her statement, she addressed both sides of the divided courtroom. This case represents a profound failure of family, community, and systems designed to protect vulnerable individuals. While the court cannot condone taking a human life as solution to abuse, we cannot ignore the circumstances that led to this tragedy. The community's response revealed its deep wounds. Memorial services for Margot attracted few attendees, most keeping a respectful distance from a woman now publicly recognized as an abuser. Meanwhile, support groups formed for families struggling with similar dynamics, creating safe spaces for discussing the invisible bruises of psychological control. Florida's legislature responded with the Reynolds Act, allocating additional funding for mental health resources and domestic abuse intervention programs. Local schools implemented curriculum addressing emotional abuse recognition, teaching students to identify warning signs in their own homes and among peers. Mental health advocates leveraged the case to highlight critical gaps in treatment accessibility. Elena had sought help multiple times, but encountered insurance barriers, provider shortages, and fragmented care. Her experience became a rallying point for healthcare reform campaigns across the state. The most profound questions remained unanswered. How had a young woman's deterioration progressed so far without effective intervention? Why had multiple systems, educational, medical, and community, failed to connect obvious distress signals? A sociology professor from the State University perhaps best captured the case's lasting impact. The Reynolds tragedy forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about privacy versus protection. Our reluctance to interfere in family matters creates perfect conditions for abuse to flourish unchecked. Until we prioritize prevention over punishment, these tragedies will continue. The Elena Reynolds case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about what we choose to see and what we look away from. The warning signs appeared consistently. Elena's withdrawal from social activities, Margot's controlling behavior witnessed by neighbors, the multiple prescriptions, the concerning themes in Elena's artwork. Each signal, viewed in isolation, seemed insufficient to warrant action. Together, they painted a clear picture of impending disaster. This tragedy highlights the critical importance of mental health accessibility. Elena sought help multiple times but encountered fragmented care and prohibitive costs. Her deterioration progressed unchecked while she simultaneously researched both escape routes and methods to appear insane. A devastating illustration of a mind toggling between victim and perpetrator. Psychological abuse leaves no visible bruises, making intervention particularly challenging. When control tactics, isolation, and emotional manipulation occur behind closed doors, victims often stand alone. The Reynolds case demonstrates how this invisibility creates perfect conditions for escalation. Perhaps most disturbing is the question of where victimhood ends and accountability begins. Elena suffered years of psychological torture, yet methodically planned her mother's murder. She was both damaged and dangerous, a complexity our criminal justice system struggles to address adequately. What constitutes true justice in cases like these? Is it possible to hold someone accountable while acknowledging the circumstances that shaped their choices? Can punishment ever be balanced with rehabilitation when trauma and calculation intertwine so completely? If this case resonated with you, please hit the like button and share it with others. Your engagement helps spread awareness about these critical issues. Subscribe to True Crime Village for more stories that challenge our understanding of human psychology and justice. Remember, recognizing warning signs saves lives.